Anyways, we're going to talk today about using XR to discover the future of data. Great. There's me. Thank you for the introduction. I will also now introduce myself again and justify to you why my opinions on this topic matter. So I've spent the last 6 years of my life designing two-dimensional data visualization and analytics tools, specifically for geospatial information. During this process, I hit every conceivable limitation offered by 2D. So I was inspired to add a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 12th dimension to data, and that's what inspired me to found my company, BadVR. For those of you who don't know, we do immersive data visualization. So all of the items that I've learned, all of the things that I've discovered while working to solve this problem and to build these products is what I'm going to be discussing here with you today. Some past items about me as well. I'm a big hackathon fan. I actually attended a hackathon, Zillow's zip code is a public data hackathon, just to get the data set so I could work with it. And that's a tip and a trick that I would offer to you guys if you're interested in getting access to some interesting data sets. And lastly, I'm the recipient of Magic Leap's Independent Creators Program grant. Shout out to Magic Leap, they're amazing. And then lastly, I have to shout out my own Twitter. You can follow me for spicy hot takes on lots of different things, including data and immersive technology. So let's get started. So big data is difficult. I don't think I've ever in my entire life worked with a data problem or spoken to anybody who told me data is easy. Like, yes, we have all the tools we need. Working with data is a joy. It's not a problem that we have. Data, the visualization of data, the analysis of data, the storage of data, everything that touches data has been difficult for a long time, since I got into this industry and on every project that I've ever worked. So, I believe that data has reached an inflection point. And what I mean by this is the amount of data that is created worldwide, it doubles in size and complexity every 2 years. And 1/5 of all companies store over a petabyte of data. This trend is not going to slow down, and if anything, this is going to exponentially increase with the adoption of IoT technology. However, the tools that we use and the methods that we use to see this data and work with this data are not changing at nearly the same exponential rate. So this is a problem that I think we all need to be aware of, and it's something that's only going to become more of an issue over time. These methods that we use, pie charts, line graphs, scatter plots, 2D, are the same methods that you see back 100 years ago when the thought of a database was a ledger full of handwritten information. And back then, these visualizations conveyed the value and the thoughts and the insights of those data sets. They did their job. They told the story well. But now, because data is dramatically different than a ledger full of handwritten information, these methods no longer tell an accurate story. They tell one story. They tell one view into the data. And what we now do is cobble together these flat visualizations into a half-hour-long PowerPoint presentation to fully tell the story of our data sets. However, I think there's a better way to do this. And I, like Tufty, believe that we shouldn't have to abbreviate the truth. Instead, we should seek and we should find better methods of presenting this data. We shouldn't just settle for what we have now. As with everything, we should always seek to improve, and we should seek to have the full truth and the full understanding of what's going on. Should also seek to make this work. Alrighty, so of course, I'm here at AWE. I believe in and I'm very passionate about immersive technology. So I believe that the solution to this problem of data growing in size and complexity and not having good tools to work with it is immersion. I think that applying AR and VR technology to this data allows us to have a holistic, deep understanding of our data that is not possible with 2D. So I like to use this image to really convey and communicate why I think immersion is a good solution to this problem. This is a sculpture by Bernard Pross. his art style is a very particular type of art that can only be understood from a holistic viewpoint. If I were to look at his sculpture from one angle, it looks like a mess, just random items scattered about a room. However, if I move a couple feet in another direction and I look into it, it looks like a masterpiece. So you have to ask yourself the question, is it actually a mess or is it a masterpiece? If you're looking at it from 2 dimensions, you're going to have one viewpoint or the other, A or B, and you're going to argue, is A right or is B right? But the reality is actually C. That is a multi-dimensional art installation that from multiple different angles tells multiple different stories. The important thing to note is the story changes depending upon your viewpoint, and this is true with your data. As your data is big and it's complex and it has multiple different angles and stories within it, you can really only truly understand which of these stories is quote-unquote true or valuable or accurate by being able to see the entire picture. And right now, what we often do is argue A versus B, when the reality is actually C, and we can't even understand that because we don't even have the ability to see C. The only way to achieve full understanding of anything, including your data, is to experience it multidimensionally. This is a visualization that I use to help convey the value of immersive technology as applied to data, and it illustrates the topic and the concept that I just described. With 2D, think about your data in a room in the same way that that sculpture, the art, was placed in a room. But with 2D, you're only able to look through and see one narrow vantage point of that data. So what the person on the far right-hand side sees in their narrow perspective, drilling down into that, is something dramatically different from what somebody on the left-hand side is going to see. And like I said, which one of these is the actual truth? None of them are the truth, because the actual truth is that there are multiple stories hidden within your data. But with immersive technology, everyone can essentially open the door, walk into the room, put on the headset, and see the full complexity of this information. They're not stuck with one vantage point. They're not limited to drilling down in only one direction. They have a deep, holistic understanding of the data set, and they can collaborate, and once everybody sees the same thing, then it's no longer an argument of A versus B. Everyone can agree that it's C, and everybody can understand and agree that the complexity of the data is telling whatever story it's telling. So let's talk a little bit about the value of AR and VR in a greater context. Again, I know that this is a whole conference about immersive technology, so I'm probably preaching a little bit to the choir here, but I think that it's good to note and to quantify the value, because the biggest question that I am always asked when I introduce my company and I try to sell my product is, well, why AR and why VR? And people need to understand, and they need to be told and to quantify the value of these technologies independently and also in the context of visualizing and working with data. So I've identified 5 benefits of immersion. Some of them are sort of grand and large, and some of them are specifically applied to data. The first one, which is very important when you're talking about having a holistic understanding, is that you can see 1,000 times more data within a single view. And why is this important? Well, with data sets being large and complex and becoming even larger in size, the reason that we have to have these single vantage points with 2D is that we can't see the entire data set. By the limitations of a 2-dimensional screen, we have to only view a little bit of the data at a time, or we have to view summaries of the entire data set that, by the very nature of being a summary, are only one particular vantage point. The second value of immersion is focus. So there are lots of different cognitive benefits of using immersive technology to view data and other different things. So it increases a lot of important metrics like memory retention, recall rates, all these different things. If you think about it, the way that the brain works, your brain, from the day that you're born, you ingest and process data in a 3-dimensional format. Why? Because we live in a 3-dimensional world. You were not evolutionarily optimized to work with 2D things. So when data is presented in a 3-dimensional format, your brain has a much faster, easier time working with it. Third, you have speed. Using immersive technology, you get to the point much faster. Again, referring back to the visual that I told you, if everyone has their own viewpoint, you have viewpoint A, viewpoint B, viewpoint C, you have to sort of cobble all of these things together. Slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, I can't tell you how many times I sat through a presentation with flat 2D charts and graphs, and this is a chart of this, and this is a chart of that, and really all it is are slices that people are stitching together, trying to tell a bigger picture. But with immersive technology, again, you don't have to do that. You can present the data in its full complexity. You also have increased accessibility. And what do I mean by accessibility? I mean that right now, in organizations, a lot of the times data is held hostage by teams of data scientists and data analysts. If you are not a person that can work with data, if you don't have that technical training, you have to rely on somebody else to not only give you that data, but also analyze it or help you analyze it. So that person, the person who creates the dashboard, the person who accesses the data, who pulls the data for you, they have control over the narrative. They have control over what story, which vantage point to pick. That means that this group of people, who all tend to be the same sort of people, they view the world the same sort of way, they have the same credentials, they're helping us, or they're giving us a slice and an understanding of the world that fits their own worldview. But with immersive technology, we can empower people who don't have that same worldview, who come from different backgrounds, who bring valuable diversity to our understanding of data. And I think that's a significant benefit that we all need to think about when adopting immersive technology in this sense. Lastly, let's just face it, 2D charts and graphs and Excel spreadsheets, they're just not engaging. Sitting in front of a computer on a 2D screen is definitely not high on the list of things that I think of when I think of, oh, it's super fun and engaging. Immersive technology, holograms, those things are cool to people. They're engaging to people. And when you present something as difficult as data in an engaging way, obviously people tend to engage with it more. Here are some benefits that are quantified, and as a data person, I do have to disclaim this by being these are general benefits, not specific to data, but I think that they are still important to look at. These are sometimes for training, sometimes they are for data, but overall we can see across the board that these valuable metrics show a tremendous amount in increase. Recall rates, memory retention, and a lot of this has to do, again, with what I said about the world being a three-dimensional place. And when you show data to people and allow them to engage with data in a three-dimensional way, their brain just has an easier time managing it. And if you go back to ancient Greece, you have the concept of a memory palace. So this has been around for a long time, the idea of placing data in a three-dimensional format to help increase the recall rate, to help increase your ability to store and recall and use information. So this is, while not a new concept, we finally have the technology and the way to present this to people using immersive technology and allow them to actually see and work with their memory palaces instead of just using it as a memory device. All right, so a lot of the times too I get asked, well, which is best? Is VR better? Is AR better? Which one would you recommend? And of course, I guess the whole theme of this presentation is that it's very complex and it's not quite so simple and there's no easy one answer. During my work at BadVR, I've found that VR is really good for some things and AR is really good for others. So it really comes down to what is your data, what are you looking for in your data, and how do you wish to work with it? So virtual reality, we found, is very good for abstract data that does not have a geospatial tie-in and does not have a contextual tie-in. This could be stuff like the output of a machine learning model, it could be marketing, the effect of marketing promotions across accounts, anything that is very, very abstract. And again, the way that this is presented also matters quite a bit, and that goes to product, which I'll speak to later. That we also have benefits for really, really large amounts of information. Working through data on a city level, on a worldwide level, VR is really good for that because it removes you from your environment and allows you to be immersed in a limitless space that can be filled up with data. It's also very good for collaborating remotely. And I say that because when you're in an environment with AR and you're collaborating, it's really good for collaborating with people who are right next to you because you can see them. But VR is really great for remote collaboration because it allows you to both meet in a different environment. And it's also really good for focused, highly focused, complex tasks. And this is because it removes all of the environmental distractions and allows you to fully focus in on what you're doing. So for augmented reality, this is very good for data that's contextual to the environment. An example of this is my company's product called C-Signal, where we visualize Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cellular signal within an environment. That is a perfect use of augmented reality because it is contextual. It's also good for smaller scale interactions when the stuff that you're doing isn't very complicated. When it's as simple as reaching out to grab a stick to get a reading, super long, complex workflows are better suited for virtual reality. And augmented reality, like I said, is great for in-person collaboration because you can see each other and see the same thing. It's less good for remote collaboration because it's not bringing you both to a different location. Augmented reality is also great for presentations. So lastly, I will talk about AI, ML, and XR, and how these three things work together to provide a comprehensive solution for working with, analyzing, and exploring large, complex, modern data sets. Like I said with VR and AR, it's not an either or, it's an and. These three things are important and will continue to become more important as time goes on when we're working through and trying to get a handle on the meaning and the insights available within these data sets. Machine learning and AI, people think, oh, well, this is a great solution. We can just, we don't need to really work with data anymore. We can just have these, algorithms tell us what the insights are and where to look. And that's good, but we are nowhere near a point where these things can function without human intervention. Humans still need to monitor models to make sure that they're fair. There's a big push for explainability in machine learning, and how do you visualize that? Especially when you're using machine learning on really, really large data sets. XR provides an excellent interface for humans to work with these advanced tools and produce results that are workable and that are intelligent and that are, most importantly, unbiased. XR is the interface that connects everything together and that guides people towards faster insights and allows them to work with really abstract, difficult, and complex things like AI and ML. So I'm going to go through super fast some use cases since I'm running out of time. The first one is a mapping tool that we worked with. This was limited to 1,000 properties in a single view. And to give you some background, each one of these properties had 250 individual data points. And when I say a property, I mean a unit. So a multi-unit building, that has 200 units, then had 250 individual data points per unit. So it was very difficult to do this on a two-dimensional map. Maxed out at about 6 layers on the map and couldn't really get deeper than that. But with an immersive map, we can easily view over 500,000 interactive buildings, and on top of that, layer other visualizations like these meshes that cover penetration in different areas and transactions with starting and ending points. Using this, we're able to expand out and actually get the full context of all this information and allow people to filter it in real time. The second use case is marketing. We started with a Tableau dashboard, and this company really wanted to understand the impact of their promotions across their entire region. When we approached this problem, it was pretty much impossible for them to do this in any reasonable amount of time. We put their data into a data stadium and allowed them to see the impact of promotions instantaneously and to move back through time to view these promotions, along with being able to drill down to the individual account level without losing the greater context, which was something that they struggled with tremendously using a normal dashboard. Every single drill down proved a greater loss of context. But with this, that didn't happen. We had a much higher engagement as well. They actually ended up cutting access to dashboards because of the engagement level. Nobody was using them anymore. And the best thing about this is the people who were engaging with this were super, super non-technical users. They loved it, they understood it, and they didn't feel stupid when they were working with complex data, so they actually engaged with it. So moving forward, how do we prepare for this move towards immersion? This is going to happen, this is coming. How do you get ready, and how do you prepare your organization for these expected challenges? First of all, make sure you have a budget to explore new products. This is very important, and I know that a lot of people think, okay, well, this is just really out there. But the newer generation is engaging with immersive technology and are going to expect immersive tools. And given all the benefits that immersive tools provide, it's wise to make some room in your budget for this. For accessibility, make sure that people on your team have the ability to play with this technology, even if it's just to explore it. Most importantly, make sure that any product that you engage with has a tangible ROI. Don't just adopt immersion for immersion's sake. It doesn't do your company any benefits, and it might actually hurt it. Because if people use immersive tools and they don't get anything out of it and it doesn't make their lives better, they're not likely to engage with it again in the future. So that's very important. Usability is also important. Demand intuitiveness from your products. If the data is not better, if the analysis is not better performed with an immersive tool, then you need to find a better tool. And lastly, educate. Educate the people who are on your team about the value of immersive technology. Educate them about the challenges that are expected as data continues to grow. Run A/B tests using immersive products. See and show them why these things can improve the data that you're working with. So lastly, my final takeaways. These are my insights from my time designing and building tools, immersive data visualization and analytics tools at BadVR. The first and foremost, the product really, really matters. And I think this is true beyond just immersive data products. It's true across all immersive products. Like I said, having immersion for the sake of immersion is not beneficial or helpful to anyone. It really has to add value to what it is that you're doing, to your workflow, to your data sets. Make sure that the product is right for the solution that it's trying to solve. You need to measure and make sure and quantify. Of course, this is data. Make data-driven decisions about this. But make sure that you also are open to giving it a shot. If you immediately dismiss this sort of stuff, then you'll never be able to accurately or even test it. And then also, use the right headset for the job, which goes back to AR versus VR. Figure out what data you're wanting to display and what questions you're wanting to ask, and then figure out whether AR or VR is better for you. And this is why my product BadVR supports both AR and VR. The products in AR and VR are completely different. Well, not completely, but very different, because they solve different problems. But you need to ask yourself which one of these headsets is right for your data. And lastly, make sure you act now. This is a problem that is not going to go away anytime in the near future. The tools that we have now to work with data and to analyze data are maxed. They are at the capacity. And as data continues to grow exponentially in size and complexity, this is only going to become more of a pain point within organizations. So prepare yourself. Make sure that you're ready for this future of immersive data, ready for this future of explosive new data from IoT and all these other 5G. Get that sweet first mover advantage. Don't get left behind. Anyways, that's me, Suzanne Borders, Immersive Data.